We're in Red Rock Canyon today, and we're going to do the Grand Circle. The visitor center is right here. There you see Blue Diamond Mountain. And here's the Rainbow Mountains coming into view. Mount Wilson, Rainbow Mountain. Smaller one to the right of Rainbow Mountain is Juniper Peak. Then we come over here and we've got Bridge Mountain. And then to the right of that, Buffalo Wall. And we've got the Keystone Thrust, which is the high cliff system. And in front of that is White Rock Mountain. We'll be seeing all of those later, but what we're going to do today is the Grand Circle. This is a trail that does a great circumference of Red Rock Canyon. And as we do this circle, we're going to be taking a look at some of the areas that we pass, some of the trailheads, some of the adventures you can have in Red Rock Canyon. So here we go, Grand Circle. But here's a little interesting feature. There are interpretive signs for the animals that you find in Red Rock Canyon. And this is the red-tailed hawk. And you can pause the video to learn more about these. Here is one for the kangaroo rat. And here's the kit fox. I think there's one more down here at least. Nope, there's a few more. The collared lizard. You wouldn't think anything could survive out here. It gets up to 110, 120 degrees during the summer, and all these animals live in that temperature. It's the second week in January at this point, and it's under 40 degrees, so that's almost an 80-degree difference. It can get down to, I'd say 20 degrees, maybe even a little less. So we're looking at a 100-degree difference in temperature throughout the year. And these animals live in these temperatures. Here's another one. The broad-tailed hummingbird. Okay, I think that we are beyond the animal interpretive signs, and there are other animals here in Red Rock Canyon, but those are a few. And you can learn more definitely at the visitor center here. But for now, let's go ahead and continue this Grand Circle. Here we go. And this wouldn't be complete without two of the main plants that you find at Red Rock. Here is a yucca plant. You'll see a lot of these. Another yucca plant here, and then Joshua tree. And that looks almost like something you'd see in a Dr. Seuss book. Pretty cool tree. So, yeah, let's continue. Okay, yeah, here's a creosote plant. And something really interesting about the creosote plants is that they grow actually in groups. They create a circle, and you can see a number of creosote plants around us. And my understanding is that they put a poison out in their root system that keeps other plants that would be competing for water, which is very precious in this area. You notice how they're not all bunched together. You won't see the creosote plants bunched together. Here is another one right in the center here, but they almost seem evenly spaced, and that is because they arrange their environment so that no others will be close to them. Okay, so let's continue on. Okay, as we start out here, let's take another look at the Rainbow Mountains. Let's take a closer look here. The Rainbow Mountains actually form a wilderness area, its own unique wilderness area called the Rainbow Mountains Wilderness. And some of the mountains here, they go all the way to, in the distance, in the south end of the Rainbow Mountain Wilderness. Just beyond is Potosi Mountain, which is the southernmost edge of the Spring Mountains. And let's take a look at some of these here. Let's identify them. Here is the most prominent, highest Rainbow Mountain, which is Mount Wilson. And just something about the Rainbow Mountains also. Notice that there is a ridge behind the Rainbow Mountains that's actually snow covered. You can see it between the Rainbow Mountains. And we'll get back to Mount Wilson in just a moment. But that ridge behind the Rainbow Mountains is called the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crust Ridgeline, and it parallels the Rainbow Mountains all the way from the northern end to the southern end of the mountains. And you can see on the Las Vegas area trails, we have been up on the Upper Crest Ridgeline. The reason I mentioned it when we were looking at Mount Wilson is that just to the left of Mount Wilson, you see that snow-covered little peak. That is, I believe, the First Creek Overlook Cliff area. And either that or on this side of Mount Wilson. The point that I'm making, though, is that I have approached that area from Lovell Canyon, which is on the other side of the Rainbow Mountains. And yeah, that actually may be, that point may be the Spring Mountains high point, and then yeah, the First Creek Overlook Cliff area would be up here, one of those high points between Mount Wilson, and to the right is Rainbow Mountain. Anyway, yeah, Rainbow Mountains are a very popular rock climbing area, and you can climb the Rainbow Mountains from below, and you're ending up doing a lot of class 3, 4, 5 cliff climbing. Or another way to get to these summits is to descend to the summits from above, which is what I'm working on, descending to each of these summits from the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. So, okay, let's take a closer look here. We've got Mount Wilson, the highest mountain at around 7,000 feet, and then to the left of that is Indecision Peak, and then moving on down there, I can't point them out individually from this perspective, but there would be Hollow Rock Peak and Black Velvet Peak, Windy Peak, and South Peak. Those would be some of the Rainbow Mountains on the southern end. And then going north from Mount Wilson, we've got Rainbow Mountain. And look to the Rainbow Mountain is the pointy mountain, and then look just to the right of Rainbow Mountain is this cliff wall. And it is aptly called Rainbow Wall. Huge cliff there. And then Juniper Peak, one of the most popular climbing destinations. You can get to the summit of Juniper Peak without exceeding class 3 climbing, which means that, yeah, you're using your hands and both your hands and your feet, but you're not climbing a cliff. And then here is Bridge Mountain, a very popular destination in the Rainbow Mountains. And to the right is Buffalo Wall. So these are the Rainbow Mountains. And then I guess you might call it a Rainbow Mountain, similar type of geology is White Rock Mountain. And all of these mountains in this system are actually frozen sand dunes from the Jurassic era. And notice how there is a red band. The reds in these mountains are caused from iron leaching up through the soil, and these are now all solidified. But very, very beautiful. And then you're looking to the right of the Rainbow Mountains. You see a cliff system at the end of Red Rock Park, the far end, north. This is the Keystone Thrust. And these are actually the La Madre Mountains wilderness. 4 times the size of Red Rock Canyon, and in itself very beautiful. They're higher than the Rainbow Mountains by about 1,000 feet. And you can see on Las Vegas area trails where we've been up on the Keystone Thrust and on the highest of the mountains. Here, for example, is on the left is El Padre Mountain, and to the right of that, in that cliff system in the background, is La Madre Mountain. Those are the highest of the La Madre Mountains. And then here's, right in the center here, is El Bastardo. So it'll give you an idea of the La Madre Mountains. And then looking this direction, here's Turtlehead Peak, another very popular destination. Great hike. And then in front of Turtlehead Peak is the Calico Hills, another really popular rock climbing destination. So this area is one of the world premier rock climbing destinations, including not only the Calico Hills, but the Rainbow Mountains, these Jurassic era, from the dinosaur era. Frozen sand dunes make awesome rock climbing. Okay, let's continue on. You can see this is an awesome trail. Very well made. We're on the Grand Circle Loop in Red Rock Canyon. Okay, question: how easy is this trail to stay on? I guess you could get lost on it. However, it is very well marked. So you can see here one of the signs. There are a couple trails here that converge but they let you know that, yeah, this is the Grand Circle, and there are a few more signs up ahead. So yeah, you could start out on this trail. You don't have a whole lot of experience in the wilderness and on trails. The signs will keep you on track. You can catch this Grand Circle loop that circles the circumference of Red Rock Canyon. You can catch it at a number of different points in the canyon, and we'll take a look at the entrance points as we go. Blue Diamond Mountain right there. And when you get on the Grand Circle, then yeah, you can take it all the way around the canyon. The reason I took it, I'm taking it in a clockwise direction from the visitor center. The reason I'm doing that is that the uphill is in the beginning. It's always nice to be able to head downhill when you're tired and do the uphill when you've got a lot of energy at the start. And so that's why I'm doing it in a clockwise direction. Another great reason to take this loop in the clockwise direction is that you've got the sun behind you as you ascend the loop, and will ascend to a high point just at the base of White Rock Mountain up here. And I guess it might even go a little higher by the time we get to the Sandstone Quarry trailhead area, which is the trailhead for Turtlehead Peak. But the point is, the sun is behind you as you begin, which makes for a great view ahead of you, and also great pictures as you're going along. And then when you're coming down the other side of the loop, once again, the sun will be behind you. And so you can get some great pictures of the Calico Hills and Turtlehead Peak. So yeah, that's another plus for taking this in the Grand Circle loop in a clockwise direction starting in the morning. Okay, I pointed out the mountains in the Rainbow Mountains wilderness. There are also canyons, and these canyons are the approaches to the mountains. And on the left side of, south side of Mount Wilson here is First Creek Canyon. And then on the right side of Mount Wilson, between Mount Wilson and Rainbow Mountain, is Oak Creek Canyon. Now, something about these canyons is that they look like, wow, you could just go up these canyons, it'd be so easy. But the canyons are choked with walls of brush, in some cases impenetrable walls of brush, and huge boulders that you need to scramble over in order to ascend these canyons. So they're not as easy as they look when you get down to it. Okay, and then we have, here is Pine Creek Canyon, and right in the center there is a beautiful rock structure called Mescalito Pyramid. And these are just awesome rock climbing areas that I pointed out here. And I've got videos just observing some of the rock climbers scaling these impossibly high vertical cliffs. And so, yeah, Pine Creek Canyon. And there are parking areas, trailhead areas at the base of each of these canyons. And then again, Bridge Mountain. And to the right of Bridge Mountain would be Icebox Canyon, one of the most popular canyon trail destinations in Red Rock Canyon here. Okay, so let's continue on. Here's another feature of the Grand Circle. I am going to take a wild guess that what we're looking at here is an old road. And maybe this was the original Red Rock Canyon Scenic Loop. Who knows? They abandoned this as a road and now use the 13-mile scenic loop, which is beautiful road. But yeah, there are a lot of roads in this area that a lot of trails that were once old roads. I may be wrong, I don't know, but it sure looks like it. You see the double tire tracks here, and also this lets you know something about the fragility of the desert environment. You would think that, yeah, this is a pretty rugged environment, a lot of rocks, and it seems like it's very stable. But yeah, this, if it was a road at one time, it was a long time ago, and you can see the evidence of that road persists here, and any disturbance of this environment could take a century or more to undo. So yeah, the desert is a very fragile environment. Things grow very slowly. You disturb the soil here, and that disturbance could last a century or more. Okay, we're now in a wash, and I believe this is Red Rock Wash, and you can see the wall right here, how high that is. And during a rainstorm, flash flood, the water really has no place to absorb into the ground because everything is so solid around here. So the water immediately rushes down from the mountains, and you don't want to be in these low-lying areas during a thunderstorm. In fact, there could be a thunderstorm up in the mountains, and you could have blue sky where you are here, and all of a sudden you got a wall of water rushing down toward you. And that wall can be, you know, if it's a really drastic storm, can be as high as those, you know, this wall ahead of us. So, yeah, if there's any rain or thunder predicted anywhere in the mountains above this area, just be very careful and always have an escape route when you're in these canyons. And by the way, speaking of rain, if you're climbing anywhere in the Rainbow Mountains, the mountains that we looked at a moment ago, these rocks, these rocks, cliffs, boulders that I mentioned in the canyons and on these rock walls, they become like a skating rink when they are wet. So definitely, if you're deciding, hey, I want to climb some of these mountains, do not do it within 24 48 hours of the last rainstorm. That goes for the Calico Hills also. Those hills look like, wow, these are really low. I tell you, when you are standing at the base of these hills, you're looking up, you know, 50, 75 foot cliffs, and you can get lost in that maze of the rock and the cliffs. So definitely, get some experience, be comfortable in these areas. A lot can happen on these cliff walls and in the rock boulder canyons. And what do I mean by get comfortable in the area? I don't mean you just take off and hike into these canyons in your first experience, but only go to your comfort area. Go to the edge of your comfort area each time you explore in any of these canyons and Jurassic sandstone cliffs in the Red Rock area. It's a real maze up there. And just go as far as you're comfortable. Get used to the climbing the rock and the different rock conditions and knowing what's safe and what's not. And then go a little beyond your comfort level each time you explore. That's what I do. And eventually you'll have the experience that you can do things you never would have imagined doing in the beginning. But don't try it all at once. Just take it by gradual degrees and never exceed your comfort level by too much before you turn around and come back another day. As the water cuts through these canyons, it creates cliff walls. There's one right in front of us. The edge of these walls can be very unstable, and they don't look like much from a distance, but I tell you, they can be 20, 30, 40 feet high. And you're going along, it seems like flat land, and all of a sudden you find yourself right on the edge of one of these cliff walls. This is true of any desert area. Death Valley, very similar to this. And so, always be aware of where you are, even in what looks like flat land, very easy. A lot of very, very high, steep cliffs with loose rock edges. And the rock, by the way, that makes up these cliffs is what's called composite. It's the action of the water has cut through this area, creating, I think the cliff we're looking at here is probably 30 feet or 30 to 40 feet high, and the rock is composite. I'd be very careful about climbing these cliff areas. There are always openings that you can find, but just climbing on these walls, very loose and can be very dangerous. The temperature differential today could be as much as 40 degrees from when I started out. It was the mid-30s, and at the height of the day, height of the temperature, midday, we could be looking at, in some places, above 70 degrees as the sun begins to warm up the surroundings. And so what I always do here and in the mountains, where you can experience some real dramatic temperature changes, is first of all, I like to remain a little cooler than is comfortable as much as I can. That conserves your water and your energy. And so in order to do that, I wear multiple thin layers rather than a heavy jacket. Don't do that. And I can peel these layers off put them back on as the temperature changes. And on some days the temperature could start out cold, be warm after a while, uncomfortably warm. You're sweating, you're losing energy. It's not comfortable. And then it could suddenly, a cloud covers the sun and the temperature can suddenly drop. Here or elsewhere in the mountains, temperature could suddenly drop as much as 20, 30 degrees in just a few minutes. So, yeah, take multiple layers of clothing, multiple thin layers. And then as far as water, during the warmer months, I will carry as much as 6 liters of water, and depends on how far you're going too. Sometimes I make out and backs and circuits up in the mountains, the cliffs you're looking at, La Madre Mountains, and then Mount Charleston area. I can be out there covering 30 miles during warm weather. And so you definitely, I need at least 6 liters of water on some days. Another thing that, something that's really great about the Las Vegas area, trails in this area, is that you can hike in lower areas during the winter, the cooler months, all the way down to Death Valley, which is one of the lowest, hottest areas on the planet. During the winter, you're in 60, 70 degrees in January, February, wearing shorts and a t-shirt. So yeah, do the lower areas. Red Rock Canyon is a low area, but Death Valley and Lake Mead area are the lowest. And then in the winter, you can ascend to the Spring Mountains up to nearly 12,000 feet on Mount Charleston. And yeah, you can be in 70 degrees when the temperature in Las Vegas Valley is 120 degrees. And so if you plan your adventures right in terms of altitude, you could be in 70 degrees year-round during your adventures in the wilderness in the Las Vegas greater area. And by that I mean what I am covering on LasVegasAreaTrails.com is areas within wilderness areas within 150 miles of Las Vegas. So there's a lot more to discover. You spend a whole lifetime here and not touch upon everything. We're approaching White Rock Mountain. Still a ways to go before we get there. Distances can be deceiving in this area. It's probably, I don't know, up to 5 miles at least before we get to White Rock Mountain, and it seems like it would be only a mile away. We're on a ridge between 2 canyons, and these are canyons that have been formed by the action of water. Here's one. And you see this canyon wash, and then we move over to this other side. We're almost on a little ridge between these two canyon washes. Creosote plant. And there's another one. Notice how there's a distance between them. Okay, yeah. And there's another canyon, another wash. And then again, White Rock Mountain. Let's continue on. Okay, here's the base of Bridge Mountain. And then there's a feature called Buffalo Wall to the right of Bridge Mountain. Here's Buffalo Wall. You wonder why they call it Buffalo Wall? I don't know, but I can only guess that you've heard maybe stories of Native Americans driving buffaloes over the edge of a cliff in order to hunt them. And this looks like a great cliff for that. It's more gradual on the other side, and then you've got this sheer cliff that is Buffalo Wall. So I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's my best guess, not knowing more specifically about Buffalo Wall. There's White Rock Mountain, and as I mentioned a little earlier, huge wash to my right or east, and another huge wash to my left or the west. And I always like to try to figure out, where did these washes originate? And this wash on my left originated up in the La Madre Mountains, between White Rock Mountain and the edge of the Rainbow Mountains. And there's an area up behind White Rock Mountain called La Madre Springs. I got videos and pages on Las Vegas area trails that describe all this when we visited them. And so this wash to my left originated in that area, and then the wash to my right originated, see that that gully between El Bastardo on the left and El Padre Mountain on the right in the La Madre Mountains? And here is the canyon where this wash on my right or to the east originated, up in this canyon. I've got a video having approached and stood on that area between El Padre and El Bastardo, right in that saddle on Las Vegas area trails. So it helps to know where the washes originate, so you can just gauge the flow of water, and knowing the flow of water, which really formed these areas here, just helps to understand what you're looking at. And you'll notice also in the lower areas, the plant life is going to be a little different than in the high ridges between the washes. So just a little factoid. So I mentioned that upper crest ridgeline in the Rainbow Mountains that parallels these beautiful mountains, and it's just behind them. How do you get to that ridgeline? Well, right between White Rock Mountain on the right and the northern tip of the Rainbow Mountains on the left is Willow Spring area. and Rocky Gap Road. Rocky Gap Road will take you around behind the Rainbow Mountains, and then there are a couple areas where you can ascend from the Rocky Gap Road. One is the North Peak Trailhead, which is not marked at all, but you can see that and how to get there on Las Vegas area trails. That'll take you up to the other side of Buffalo Wall. It's a very beautiful plateau. I call it Paradise Plateau. I'm sure it's not named that, but it sure feels like it when you're up there. So that'll take you up to the plateau area. Then you can start taking the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. Another way is to ascend Rocky Gap Road to its high point before it begins to descend into Lovell Canyon. And at that high point, there is another trailhead, which is a little better marked. Not horribly well marked, but a little better. And it's the Bridge Mountain Trailhead. Here's Bridge Mountain. And on the other side of Bridge Mountain is the trailhead from Rocky Gap Road that'll take you up to that area. And if you're climbing Bridge Mountain, that is your way to get to Bridge Mountain. And this, by the way, is part of Bridge Mountain, but the actual Bridge Mountain cliff we'll see in a moment when we round the corner, head a little further north. That is a very vertical, stark cliff area. Very beautiful. So that is how to get to the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. And by the way, beside the two trailhead areas that I mentioned, the North Peak Trailhead and the Bridge Mountain Trailhead off of Rocky Gap Road, there are a couple other access points for the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. You can hit the midpoint in the ridgeline above Mount Wilson by way of Lovell Canyon. And at the camping area there, you take Saltgrass Road up to the base of the Upper Crest Ridgeline on the other side of Mount Wilson, and you can actually ascend to where you're only a couple hundred feet below the summit of Mount Wilson. Got a page on Las Vegas area trails where we did that adventure. And then the southern portion of the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline is from Highway 190 between the end of the Rainbow Mountains and Potosi Mountain. As it reaches its high point, there's a trailhead, Mountain Spring Trailhead, and you can access the southern tip of the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, and you can pretty easily, without exceeding Class 2, maybe a little bit of Class 3, but not much. Class 2 means you don't need to use your hands in order to stabilize yourself as you're climbing over stuff. Most of the Upper Crest Ridgeline is Class 2 climbing, and so you can access it down by Potosi Mountain and take it all the way north to the Willow Spring area and the northern extent of the Rainbow Mountains. Or you could start at Willow Spring and take it all the way south to Potosi Mountain. So that's the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. I've done a lot of that, and I've got pages on Las Vegas area trails along with videos of the Upper Crest Ridgeline. Totally beautiful. It's like being on a mountaintop the whole way. Here's another canyon that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's between Bridge Mountain on the left, and actually Bridge Mountain is a little higher than what you see on the left, and Buffalo Wall on the right. And this canyon is called Icebox Canyon, one of the most popular hikes in Red Rock Canyon and the Rainbow Mountains. Once you cross the scenic drive down here, you're approaching the Rainbow Mountain wilderness. And so anyway, yeah, Icebox Canyon. And as I mentioned before, going into these canyons, it's a matter of scrambling over boulders. You want to make sure they're dry, and navigating sometimes solid walls of brush. And by brush walls, I mean, you know, they can be like 10, 15 feet high, and definitely put an end to your adventure. But I don't know how far yet I don't know yet how far you can go up Icebox Canyon. Maybe you can ascend all the way to the Rainbow Mountains upper Crest ridgeline. I think, not sure, but I think this may be North Peak, or it's the next one hidden behind Bridge Mountain. Just not totally sure. Another little feature up here is this whole area. On the other side of this cliff area, there is a kind of hidden forest. Very beautiful. So there's a lot to see from above. But at some point I will see how far I can get up Icebox Canyon. And in navigating these canyons, it's always a question what time of year is best. I'm thinking, well, if you're in the spring, there's going to be water in the washes, and you'll be navigating through that water. If it's in the fall, you will be navigating the highest brush, thickest brush time of year. If you go in the summer, you could be in, like I mentioned earlier, 110 degrees or more. So I wouldn't even tackle this in the summer. And in the winter, as you can see, you could encounter snow on these steep, rocky areas. It'd be very slick, like a ice skating rink. So there are challenges any season that you attempt these canyons in the Rainbow Mountains, but I would say spring or fall are your best bet. And then, by the way, here is the trailhead area for Icebox Canyon. Okay, and you can see we are definitely closing in on White Rock Mountain and the Willow Spring area between White Rock Mountain and the edge of the Rainbow Mountains, and then La Madre Mountain at the top, La Madre Mountains wilderness at the top of the Keystone Thrust, and those cliffs between, behind Willow Spring area. And by the way, here is a good shot of El Bastardo. El Padre. We're looking at 8,000 to 8,500 feet. Some of these La Madre Mountains, the highest area in that wilderness. And then there's the gully saddle between the two. Here's another little quick tip for navigating the desert, the wilderness area. I went a little off course from the Grand Circle Loop in order to get that overlook of Icebox Canyon, which means that now I am traversing this brushy area, and a lot of rather sharp, prickly things in this area. These yucca plants, those are like spears, very hard and sharp. And the reason I mentioned that is that besides cutting yourself if you get too close, there's also your shoes. And as I've navigated wilderness areas like this in the past, all of a sudden I'll look down at my shoes, they'll feel a little loose, and these sharp, prickly things have literally cut through my shoelaces. Now I have a shoe without shoelaces and a lot of desert to cover. So I learned very quickly that one thing that is not always mentioned to bring along with you on wilderness hikes, bring along an extra pair of shoelaces. And once I started doing that, I used them a lot. And not only are they good for shoes when your shoelaces break. Here we are back on the Grand Circle Trail. Not only are they good for your shoes, so you don't have to walk around with no shoelaces and your shoes falling off. You definitely don't want to go barefoot in areas like this. But they're also good to have those shoelaces for other, things you may need to wrap things up, tie them. If you have a failure in your backpack or a belt or something, those shoelaces can be very helpful. So yeah, take along an extra pair of shoelaces with you when you're in areas like this. Okay, now we can look up Icebox Canyon and see a lot more than we could previously. So yeah, I'm thinking, is it possible to hike up Icebox Canyon and reach the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, which this snow-covered greenish hill is on that ridgeline? I don't know. There are some cliff areas before you get there, so it may not be possible unless you are a rock climber with the experience and the equipment. I don't know. We'll find out at some point. But here you can see Buffalo Wall to the right of Icebox Canyon. And here is our first look at Bridge Mountain. And you can see, yeah, stark cliff. Very beautiful though. And then there's the base of Bridge Mountain that we've been looking at earlier, and the hidden forest just above that high point. So there you have it, a look at Bridge Mountain on the left, Icebox Canyon in the center, Buffalo Wall area to the right. And then we continue onward, closing in on White Rock Mountain. And now here's a better view of Bridge Mountain. Okay, I've mentioned Willow Spring area between the Rainbow Mountains and White Rock Mountain. Rainbow Mountain's on the left, White Rock Mountain on the right. And a little bit, why would you go to the Willow Spring area? Well, there's a lot there. There are 3 great, in fact 4 great trails that you can have an adventure in from the Willow Spring area. First of all, it's a great picnic area. There are picnic tables, restrooms, very nice. And you can go up Lost Creek Canyon, which is right in this area. Great waterfall at the end of Lost Creek Canyon. I've got pictures and videos of water cascading over the rocks there. But you need to be there like in the spring or winter after a rain to get the best flow. There's also a petroglyph wall where you can see ancient Native American petroglyphs drawn on the cliff wall. And then there is the Willow Spring loop where you can experience a number of different climate zones in this loop that is, it's under 2 miles. I think it's more like 1 mile. And I've got videos of all those experiences. And then another thing that you can access is the White Rock Mountain Loop Trail. It's a 5-mile trail that circles the base of White Rock Mountain. Very nice trail. In fact, it's a great trail to use as a running workout. And then a couple additional things you can do from the Willow Spring area. One is you can go up Rocky Gap Road on the backside of the Rainbow Mountains by taking a left, and that accesses all of the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. But you can take a right around the backside of White Rock Mountain and ascend to the La Madre Springs area. And you can actually keep going. I've got a video showing you how to get up to the summit of the Keystone Thrust, where you can then skirt the edge of all these huge cliffs at the on the upper edge of the Keystone Thrust, and you can skirt those cliffs all the way over to El Padre Mountain. And then La Madre Mountain is not visible from this perspective, but yeah. And then you could descend to Kyle Canyon Road if you wanted to in Kyle Canyon. So those are a number of adventures. And by the way, La Madre Springs, beautiful little waterfalls, very peaceful. The water flows, I think it's year-round flow in the La Madre Springs area behind White Rock Mountain. And by the way, when you take that White Rock Mountain loop, the south side, which is what we're on here, looks like this. You go to the north side around behind White Rock Mountain, and you're in a beautiful pine forest. So you can see a video in Las Vegas Area Trails of the White Rock Mountain Loop. Okay, let's continue on the Grand Circle Loop Trail. Another great thing about this Grand Circle Loop is that at no point on this trail are you too far from civilization and a rest stop, and where there are other people parking their cars at trailheads. In fact, we're crossing the scenic drive in Red Rock Canyon, and now we're continuing on the Grand Circle Loop. Okay, as I mentioned, I use layers, and I'm taking off some of the layers of warm weather clothing, putting on some of my lighter layers. And just to give you an idea of what I've carried along, here are some neoprene knee braces, and I use them for the downhills. They work as excellent shock absorbers, protecting your knee joints. And then here's a thicker t-shirt that I used on the way up, and here's an example of a thinner t-shirt I'm going to put on in a moment. So those are the t-shirts. And then I had a very thin, light microfiber jacket, and here are some fleece gloves. They really came in handy when I was beginning in the 35-degree weather. And then here's a microfiber cap with an extra pair of sunglasses. There's nothing like having a pair of sunglasses break while you're on the trail in these very bright areas. So I always have an extra pair. And then this little sheet is, I put this under the microfiber cap, and it works as a kind of headdress. And so I'm in the shade all the time. These shoes are trail shoes. They're trail running shoes, very light, and got great traction. I don't use boots in this area especially, but I go up the mountains in those trail shoes. And then here's a pair of long pants, and here are my my hiking trekking poles that I made myself. They provide stability on loose rock and steep areas, and they're just yucca stalks, last year's yucca stalks that are all dried up, and then I wind jute twine around the ends, soak it in wood glue, and it provides good traction for my hands. And so those are the trekking poles. And by the way, I have a page on Las Vegas Area Trails, a video where I show how to make these poles. So there you have it, my clothing strategy for adventures in this warmer area. And I guess the one thing that's missing from this is, what do you do when you're on snow and ice? And I use racing spikes, track racing spikes. I've got 1/2-inch spikes that I screw into the racing spikes, and that gets me just about anywhere as far as snow and ice. I've even used those. Well, I have 1-inch spikes that I use in the Cascade Mountains on glaciers. So there you have it. There's my strategy. And by the way, this is probably a more heavy-duty backpack than you might ever need. I've got an external battery in this pack that keeps my phone charged no matter how long I'm out and around. I've got a Camelback for water, holds 3 liters, and then I carry additional water in the pack. And in addition to that, I have, as I mentioned, extra things like extra shoelaces. I've got headlamps, though I don't like to travel in the dark, but it's good to have the light if you end up unexpectedly being delayed by injury or whatever. When you're in the mountains, you're in the dark. So there you have it. That's my strategy for traversing wilderness areas. I can get up to about I get up to 11,000, 12,000 feet on Mount Charleston with nothing more than what you're seeing here. And by the way, what do I eat? I'm one for being very simple when it comes to food. I just want to, keep moving. And so I have power bars. And I always have about 6 power bars I start out with, and usually end up with 3 or 4. And here are a couple other things that I forgot to mention. One is this fleece head ring, which is very helpful when the temperature is low. You keep your head warm and it warms your whole body. And then here is a wind muffler, which is very helpful when the winds come up and you wouldn't be hearing a word I'm saying except for that wind muffler. And the rubber band is to tie it to my phone. So there you have my wilderness strategy and equipment. And here's another important item: sunscreen. When you're putting on and taking off all those layers of clothing, you're going to expose skin that you forgot to cover in the cool morning. And so it's good to have the sunscreen. I would recommend 15 or higher as a rule. Okay, now we're looking at Blue Diamond Mountain coming into better view, and the Calico Hills and Turtlehead Peak. And let's get a little closer look. And there you can see the scenic drive below Turtlehead Peak. Turtlehead Peak, Calico Hills. And at the base of those hills, there would be the visitor center where we began. And then Blue Diamond Mountain. Then, of course, the Rainbow Mountains. And now you can see the tip of that forest area, that hidden forest I mentioned at the base of Bridge Mountain. There's that forest, and you can see the edge of it. And then here is Bridge Mountain. Then back to the Keystone Thrust, the snow-covered cliffs, and White Rock Mountain. And now the trail takes a turn. We're going to skirt the base of White Rock Mountain, and we are actually we'll be on the White Rock Mountain Loop, which is an awesome loop that makes a great running trail, 5-mile loop. Anyway, we're on this side of the loop, the south side of the loop, and continuing on around. And because we took the loop in this direction, now the sun is shining on the Calico Hills and Turtlehead Peak, which is the direction we are headed. So that's an added benefit to taking this loop in a clockwise motion or direction from the visitor center. And here we are at the intersection of the Grand Circle and the White Rock Mountain Loop. So we take a right here, and you'll continue to see signs for the Grand Circle. You won't see signs for White Rock Mountain Loop, but you are on that loop. Here we go. Okay, here's the most rugged area we have encountered so far, and we need to cross through this canyon area below and then ascend again to the tip of White Rock Mountain right in this area. And you might be able to see, no, I guess it's not visible, but there is a trailhead restroom area right at the tip of White Rock Mountain. So here we go, down and up. Gets a little more rugged, not much. Okay, notice the change in the vegetation in this area. We've got juniper trees There's a pine tree. And here's some different cacti than we saw below. Beautiful pillar on the southwest edge of White Rock Mountain. Look at the change in landscape here. This is like a different world than the world we were in earlier. You can see a lot of the beautiful Jurassic frozen sand dune rock, calico colored. And the trail is definitely well signed. So you always have periodic markers that'll keep you on track. And then looking up from this point, you can see the beautiful southern cliffs of White Rock Mountain. And it's predicted that within an hour, we're going to have 60% cloud cover in this area. So these may be some of the last blue sky pictures that you see today. Another look at the south side of White Rock Mountain. See some gathering clouds. I always like to look for potential summit approaches up these canyons. El Padre in the background center. Give you an idea of what things look like right around here. See down in the canyons where there's a lot of water. There are pine tree forests, junipers. A little more evidence up here at the base of White Rock Mountain that this may have been a road at one time. You can see the dual tire tracks. Another shot of the south side. I guess this would be the southeast side of White Rock Mountain. Different perspective. And then continuing along this old road trail, the Grand Circle Loop in Red Rock Canyon. In the wilderness, especially in the mountains, it's always good to know where the weather is coming from. Look at the blue skies here. And then as we circle around, and this is White Rock Mountain, by the way. There are the Rainbow Mountains. And notice, a lot more clouds. The weather seems to come from the south and just continue up into this direction. So the sky we view in about an hour or so from now is going to be looking like this. Not too bad still, but yeah, we know what's coming toward us at this point. And this is the blue sky that has not yet been influenced by those clouds. Okay, we're coming up on one of the most beautiful areas. It's the White Rock Spring area. And here's the little trail. It's only 0.05 miles to get to White Rock Spring below. We're not going to go there today, but you can look at the White Rock Mountain Loop page on Las Vegas Area Trails. See where we descended to the spring. It's like 25 yards from here. Very peaceful, beautiful. There's a little bench there, but we're going to continue on now, and we're approaching the upper White Rock Trailhead. You'll see it in a moment. Okay, here we are at the upper White Rock Trailhead, and we'll see where this grand circle continues. We may need to go down to the lower White Rock Trailhead. There are two actually here. We may need to go down to the lower one to reconnect with the Grand Circle Trail, but we'll find out. Okay, I am going to assume, since I don't see any signs for the Grand Circle Trail, I'm going to assume that we go down to the lower White Rock Trailhead. So it's about, I don't know, half mile, quarter mile to that lower trailhead. Let's go down there and look for signs of the White Rock Circle, the Grand Circle Loop Trail. And by the way, if you are at that upper trailhead area, which is right up here, and you've just emerged, as I have, from taking the loop to that point, you will not see any sign that says head down this way to continue the loop. So you probably just need to know that, provided that that's actually what you're supposed to do. We're going to find out. Okay, and by the way, about 1/8 of a mile down this road, here is our first indication we're still on the Grand Circle Loop. So yeah, you need to know that you need to make this turn. Okay, here we are in the lower parking area. And where is that Grand Circle Loop? We see a sign that says Grand Circle right here. Okay, it doesn't say to turn here, but let's explore around a little bit and see where we can pick up on the loop. I see a little sign across the scenic drive. Let's go down and look at that sign first. So here we are crossing the Red Rock Canyon Scenic Drive. I see a sign here and a little trailhead. So let's see. Yes, Grand Circle Loop. So yeah, if you're at the upper White Rock Trailhead where you see the last sign about 3/4 of a mile away from this point, you see the last sign for Grand Circle Loop up there. You just need to know, go all the way down to the scenic drive, cross the scenic drive, and the loop continues here. So yeah, you could get lost. You could think you're continuing on the loop when you're taking a little spin off on the Keystone Thrust Trail. You will not find the loop on that trail or going around the other side of White Rock Mountain. So you just need to know that you descend to the lower White Rock parking area and cross the scenic drive, and there you will find the continuation of the Grand Circle Loop, which we are on right now. Okay, now we're past White Rock Mountain, and you can see before us El Bastardo on the left, El Padre on the right, the La Madre Mountains at the top of the Keystone Thrust. And then circling around, here's a shot of Turtlehead Peak. And that White Rock area down there is, and we'll take a closer look in a moment, but that White Rock area, that's the Sandstone Quarry area, which is the trailhead for Turtlehead Peak. We should be there not too far into the future here. And then here's the Calico Hills. And then a new thing, we've got Las Vegas Valley appearing. And then Blue Diamond Mountain. And the Rainbow Mountains. You see the gathering clouds here. So as long as it doesn't rain, I'm fine. If it rains, I tell you, the phone will stop working and all the pictures will stop. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit on these sites. Rainbow Mountains. Red Rock Canyon. Blue Diamond Mountain out the south end of the canyon. Las Vegas Valley in the city of Las Vegas. Let's zoom in a little bit. There you have it. Calico Hills. The White Rock of Sandstone Quarry. Turtlehead Peak. I call that ridge to the left Turtlehead Peak, Turtlehead Ridge. You can actually take that over to the a southern approach, the La Madre Mountains. El Padre, and behind it, I believe that might actually be La Madre Mountain, a little bit to the right. And there's the gully between, the saddle between El Padre and El Bastardo. And the reason I point that out is that I've reached the top of that saddle from Kyle Canyon. I call it the Kyle Canyon Grand Crossing, but I haven't been able to descend into Red Rock Park due to some of the cliff action there that you can see below that saddle. But we'll see if we can get that taken care of. There's El Bastardo. Back at White Rock Mountain. And then back at the Rainbow Mountains where we began. So there's an idea of what you can see from here. Okay, there's the high point on the Red Rock Canyon Scenic Drive. And the cool thing about that is that you can drive to that high point and you can see all of Red Rock Canyon from your car. So, or standing just in front of your car almost. And then let's take a look at what you'd be seeing from that high point. We have been up higher than that point, so you can see a lot of what we have seen from that high point. And there we are looking down toward Blue Diamond Mountain. There's the Calico Hills, Turtlehead Peak, all of that visible from that high point. Beautiful view. And looking down Red Rock Canyon, and you can see the Rainbow Mountains, not as brilliant as they were this morning when we were going toward them. So another reason for taking this loop in a clockwise direction from the visitor center. And there's the La Madre Mountains. And these are all things you can see from that high point from your car. It's pretty awesome. Okay, another crossing of the Red Rock Canyon Scenic Drive. We're closing in on the Sandstone Quarry Trailhead, which is the trailhead for Turtlehead Peak, and you can see Turtlehead Peak immediately in front of us. So let's cross the scenic drive and look down the hill to see the pathway to Sandstone Quarry Trailhead. And as I mentioned earlier, those white rocks are at the Sandstone Quarry Trailhead. So we're looking straight toward it. And there's Turtlehead Peak. Okay, let's head down there. We're closing in on the Sandstone Quarry Trailhead area. You see those white rocks that we saw earlier. There's Turtlehead Peak. So what can you do from the Sandstone Quarry Trailhead? You can take the trail up to the summit of Turtlehead Peak, right in the middle. Or you can take the Calico Tanks Trail. Both of those are very, very beautiful areas. Must-do experiences. And if you're extra ambitious, you can actually take the wash above the parking area all the way up to the upper end of Red Rock Canyon at the base of those cliffs, the Keystone Thrust Cliffs that we saw earlier. And there's a trail that circles around, a passageway that circles around to the Calico Basin. And that actually is a great access to what is referred to as the Notch, which is a saddle between El Padre Mountain and La Madre Mountain. And wow, you're looking wilderness when you try to go through the notch. There are no trails, and it is pretty vertical in spots, a lot of loose rock. I've not made it all the way to the top of the notch, which would be access to El Padre Mountain on the left and Turtlehead Peak on the right. But I've gotten very, very close, and we'll try that again at some point. It is very doable, but yes, very vertical, slippery, loose rock near the summit of that notch. And now here we are coming over the hill, and we're looking down at the Sandstone Quarry parking area, and it's named for a quarry where blocks of sandstone were actually cut from this white rock, and there was about a 5-year, 10-year period where these blocks were cut and transported out. However, what happened there is that it just became no longer cost effective to cut these blocks and transport them out of the canyon. So the operations ended, I think it was early 1900s. Not sure, but you can see on the Calico tanks and the Turtlehead Peak pages of Las Vegas area trails, where I describe it more accurately and in detail what happened at that quarry. But yeah, here we are at the Sandstone Quarry Trailhead area, one of the most popular trailheads in Red Rock Canyon. So yeah, this is a weekday. If it's a weekend, you're not going to find any parking there after, I'd say, you're really gambling to be there by 10 o'clock. I would be there by no later than 8 o'clock, especially on a Saturday morning, maybe 7 o'clock. Park opens at 6. So another thing about the Sandstone Quarry is that it is the third pullout on the Red Rock Canyon Scenic Drive, and we're taking this whole loop backwards, the opposite direction of the traffic. There you see some of the traffic on the Scenic Drive and pulling into Sandstone Quarry parking area, looking for parking spots. And yeah, this is the third pullout. There are 2 others in the Calico Hills area. And by the way, yeah, look at the colors on the Calico Hills from this perspective. Totally beautiful. Anyway, the first 2 pullouts are, the first one is one that's pretty recreational for most people. The second pullout at the higher up in the Calico Hills is mostly for rock climbers who climb these vertical rock walls that you see. Okay, but we'll be heading down there really soon. And by the way, I spoke about the notch between La Madre Mountain and El Padre Mountain. And here you see the 2 mountains, El Padre on the left, La Madre on the right, and that area between is called the Notch. So yeah, everything I said about it, there it is. Remember, I spoke earlier about walls of brush in the canyons? This is what I mean. So here we are in a lower lying area, and this is the height of my head, and you can see the brush exceeds that height by another, I don't know, I'd say it's about 12 feet tall. And you're going through a tunnel. Fortunately, there's a trail here, but when you're up in those canyons, there are no trails and you hit the wall of brush. So just a little note to be aware of. Okay, let's continue on. Well, this loop trail passes too close to the Sandstone Quarry. Here's the massive stones, and it was 1905 to 1912, so I was kind of close. And the blocks weighed up to, just massive. Weighed up to 10 tons. That's 20,000 pounds. So let's just take a look at where they were quarried out of this rock, out of the side of the hill. And then we'll continue on the loop. But this is just too close to pass up. More brush. You can see some of the operation here. And yeah, I passed right by this area where they were quarried because I was watching out for the brush. Let's go back through the brush, knock my sunglasses off of my head. So, yeah, the actual quarry, last place they were cut from the side of the mountain, is right in this area. This is where the blocks were cut. Pretty amazing. Okay, let's continue on around the loop. Okay, I am beginning to think that the Grand Circle Loop is marked for people who are traveling in the clockwise or counterclockwise direction on the loop. But I've given a good argument for taking it clockwise. So yeah, so some of the signage will be a little more difficult to see if you take it clockwise, but there are benefits to that. Here's a couple rock climbers on these vertical cliff areas. A lot of rock climbing opportunity. Okay, I may have strayed from the Grand Circle Trail because this says it's the Calico Hills Trail. We shall see if there is a connection here, or if they start calling it the Grand Circle Loop again. We don't know. It could be down in that direction, but I don't see anything that looks like a trail down there. So let's go ahead and continue here, and maybe we'll be taking a slight deviation, but we're not too far from the Grand Circle Loop. And we know that all we need to do is now head along the Calico Hills until we get back to the visitor center. So yeah, maybe a little deviation, we are not sure. The trail was very well signed earlier, but the signage gets a little weak around the Sandstone Quarry trailhead area. So like I said, you can't really lose going in this direction. Of course, there's a complete map on LasVegasAreaTrails.com, the Red Rock Canyon Grand Circle Loop. So if I had been looking at the map on my own website, I would know exactly where I was. Wow, look at these hills. Frozen Jurassic sand dunes. The reds are from iron leaching up through the soil when they were still sand dunes. So you see that calico look. Very, very beautiful. By the way, this is what I mean by drop-offs here. Looking at these Calico Hills from a distance, and you're thinking, wow, these aren't so high. But you get up close and wow, there you have it. Very, very high. 50, 75, 100 foot drop-offs. And as I said, when the surface is wet, it's like an ice skating rink. So this is true of these Calico Hills, and the Rainbow Mountains are made of this same material. Okay, yes, we are still on the Grand Circle Loop. There's the sign. So yes, you won't see the words Grand Circle Loop up at the Sandstone Quarry. You will see Calico Hills, and you just need to know you're still on the Grand Circle Loop, and then in about 100 yards, or I'd say maybe 1/8 of a mile from the Sandstone Quarry, below the Sandstone Quarry, you will see the first sign that says Grand Circle Loop. So there you have it. Wow, look at the formations here. Just amazing. Look at this. It almost does look like wind-blown sand. We're in the Calico Hills portion of the Grand Circle Loop. And continuing around. Wow, this looks entirely different every corner that you turn. Look at the sculpture of those rocks. Now we have a pine tree in the foreground here. Be a great place for a nature photographer to just go crazy, taking all kinds of images. Wow, check this out. See beehive rock formations. Okay, here's another perspective. Spectacular. And looking straight up through this area, there is the tip of Turtlehead Peak. Yeah, now we're looking at vertical cliffs that are probably, I'd say, 200 feet, maybe higher, up to 300 feet. You wouldn't think, seeing them from a distance, as we saw from higher up on the Grand Circle Loop Trail. Incredibly beautiful section of the Grand Circle Loop at the base of the Calico Hills. Another amazing stretch around this corner. You can see a little beehive formation right up there. Huge distances. And what looks small from a distance is just massive. Okay, this whole rock face has petroglyphs from Native Americans centuries ago. And let's take a closer look at some of them. I don't want to stand on the rock here because that would potentially damage the petroglyphs. But look. There you have it. What do they mean? There is a study, doctoral dissertation. You can download it from LasVegasAreaTrails.com. You'll find it in the petroglyph wall section, the Valley of Fire area. And the dissertation was actually for the Valley of Fire area. And these petroglyphs were made by, you notice how the rock surface is darker. And this is oxidation of the iron deposits. Creates a dark film. And then to create the petroglyph drawings, it's actually a perfect notepad here, because all you have to do is etch away the dark. You get the lighter rock underneath, and you have your petroglyph drawing. There's a few more up there that I'd missed the first time. They're like looking at stars at night. The deeper you look, the more you see. And here are a few more. Okay, yeah, another area, another set of amazing rock formations. Oh yeah, and there on the cliff, rock climber just rappelled down from above. And we're very close to that rock climber's pull out on the scenic drive road. Okay, now you can see the second pull out on the scenic drive. This is the one for rock climbers. And then looking down a ways to the first pull out, which is one of the main, well, the main pull out in the Calico Hills area for most people, myself included. Yeah, look at this area. From that first pull out, a lot of people stop there and then they climb around on the hills here. All kinds of different levels of climbing. You can get lost in these hills pretty easily. It looks very simple from this perspective, but yeah, they're like a maze. And I've been up there where I find that I reach a cliff dead end on the way back, and I go another direction I thought I came, another cliff dead end, and it can just get difficult to stay on course and work your way in and out of these hills. They are like a maze. And then there's a page on Las Vegas area trails where I circle around the Calico Hills. There is what I call the Grand Loop. It's probably named something else, but if you go to that page on Las Vegas Area Trails, you'll see where you can circle around the Calico Hills from the Red Springs Desert Oasis area around to this side, and when you reach the this area on the other side, this is how you then circle around and descend right through this channel. And then you connect on this side with the Grand Circle Trail, and then take it around the far side, on the south side of the Calico Hills, back to Red Springs Desert Oasis. That's a great experience. Surrounded by beehive formations here in this section. Look at the intricate openings here. Beehives. And you can tell from the layering on the rocks why they call it beehives. Take a look at some of these intricate formations. Still on the Grand Circle Loop, but it has descended into a lower wash. So continuing onward. Okay, that area below that I just came through, the lower wash, that was a little sketchy. But just kind of going by impulse, here I find myself on a trail, which, yes, could be the Grand Circle Loop. Maybe I shouldn't have descended into that wash. I don't know. But here we are back on a trail. Yeah, I maybe should have been up here. But a little detour. Not bad. Maybe I was looking at the rock formations too much and not looking for the trail. But it is hard to get lost in this area. So if you get a little off course, you can pretty easily find your way back on course. And I think that's where I am now, on course. Well, everything's grand around here. There is, on the other side of these Calico Hills in the Calico Basin, passageway up to the summit of the Calico Hills that's referred to as the Grand Stairway. And I believe it ends right at that rock. And I've sat on top of that rock before. Awesome view. Okay, continuing on. Oops, I see a little trail marker sign up here. Maybe that is the Grand Loop, or Grand Circle Loop. And I got a little off course. We don't know. But we didn't miss much. Just circling around a little lower here. And it should reconnect. Little deviation in the loop. So it should reconnect ahead. Okay, yes, we did miss a little deviation in the loop that goes over this hill above where you see the people. Okay, where I went wrong is when we were down in the wash earlier looking at all the colorful rocks, and I didn't realize that you go straight up those rocks for a ways. But here we are, back on the loop. Yes, note to self, the signage works a lot better on this loop if you take it in a counterclockwise direction, just as you would the scenic drive, but I like the other direction. Yeah, we're back on the loop, and it has risen up to this first pull out on the scenic drive. If you're going the other direction, the scenic drive is a one-way route, so you can only go counterclockwise on the scenic drive. But there was no indication that, at least that I could see, that you needed to ascend to this area up here in order to stay on the grand circle. Yet here we are with signs that indicate we are on the grand circle. So there you have it. It can get a little sketchy in a few places to stay on the grand circle. I guess the sketchiest places were the White Rock Trailhead, the Sandstone Quarry, Turtlehead Peak Trailhead area, and down in the lower canyon where I missed just a little deviation in the grand circle loop. But for the most part, yeah, we have been on the loop the whole time. Okay, continuing along. And the next stop should be the Red Rock Park Visitor Center below, which is where we started. So here we go on the home stretch of the Grand Circle. And remember earlier where I was talking about a rock that I sat on at the top of the Calico Hills? I may have jumped the gun on that other rock. Sometimes things can be a little confusing from another direction. So I'm going to revise that and say that that rock I was on was up in this area up here at the summit of the grand staircase. It's one of these rocks, maybe one of those two right there. Maybe that one. But that is the summit area of the grand staircase, and there's a person standing on top of maybe the very rock that I was sitting on. Okay, on the home stretch, there is the visitor center. I think we've passed all the most interesting parts of this loop. Now it's just traversing across this desert area, and we will be back where we began. And yeah, you're looking straight at Blue Diamond Mountain straight ahead, and then looking down, there are the Calico Hills. Little review of where we've been. You can see White Rock Mountain. In fact, yeah, we missed Turtlehead Peak. There's Turtlehead Peak and El Padre and La Madre Mountain behind. Keystone Thrust Cliff System. White Rock Mountain again. And now we're at the Rainbow Mountains. And you see how much better they look in the rising sun than in the afternoon. Even on a clear day, you're looking straight into the sun. And then here we are back at Blue Diamond Mountain. A lot to explore. Crossing the scenic drive one final time. They're looking up the scenic drive. One-way drive, big circuit. That's the way it goes. And this is looking down the scenic drive. And we cross, and we're still on the Grand Circle Loop, approaching the Red Rock Canyon Visitor Center. Back at the Visitor Center. By the way, that little circle up here, pretty cool. There are interpretive signs pointing to a lot of the things I've pointed out. So you can go to the Visitor Center, walk around that little circle, and view the signs. Very nice. By the way, here's a nice little sign. It says how far things are. The Grand Circle is 11.3 miles. The Calico Hills are 1.9 miles from here. And we were just up there. And then there's a Moen Kopi loop, 1.9 miles. So lots of things you can do around here. And here we are closing the loop. Exactly where we began. That's a pretty awesome overview of Red Rock Canyon. I hope you enjoy.